some young broke dude.
Want to scam my store by abusing the scan law? Two can play that game. Michigan has a law in its books that protects customers from being charged more than an item is priced due to a scanning error. If a customer is overcharged, they are entitled to 10 times the difference or $5, whichever is less on top of the difference. So if a customer is charged $5 for an item priced $4, they get $1 back plus another $5. The fee is to basically compensate the customer for the time and expense at having to come back to the store to get a refund and such. Our pricing and sales system sometimes can get goofed up by certain things. The most common thing is a sale on an item is being extended into the next month. That setup will wipe out the current month's sale price to cause an overcharge. Luckily, it is only on a few brands, so we can quickly discover it and correct it. And I would say 90% of our customers realize things like this happen and will come back, only ask for the adjustment, and we have a good laugh. But we have one customer, Charles, who likes to game the system. He will deliberately seek out these errors and then try to claim the scan law to get money. He earned a permanent place on my shit list because he took advantage of me, another manager, and one of my favorite employees to get a $50 item for $5. Every time I have seen him in the store, he has always tried this crap. I usually try to avoid him because he may anger me with his comments to the point I will mention his aforementioned scam. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, I could not avoid having to ring this guy up. Here's where the malicious compliance came in. A month prior, I had to look up the scan law because of a different customer's irate wife calling me and yelling that we did not just hand her husband $5. You have to claim the law. He did not. But I later discovered he was not eligible for it anyways. I also took note that anything the cashier manually types in is also not eligible. I tucked that little piece of information away. So when this guy came through my checkout, I made up some excuses about the scanner being twitchy, and I proceeded to hand type in every single UPC that this guy had, and he had at least 20 to 30 items. I made sure that I moved every item well over the scanner so that it did not register any item. So this guy's order was 100% manual. I then asked him, does everything look correct, as one of the other managers advised everyone to do if they deal with him. He said yes, and that he paid. He was at the service desk not even a minute later talking to one of the senior managers. I got closer so I could eavesdrop, hoping he was pointing out to her that I had overcharged him for several items and how he wanted $5 for every single one. I was sad to find out he was actually referring to another receipt. After he left, I told the senior manager what I had done and how I really wanted to chime in and tell him, well, unfortunately, you were not entitled to anything but the difference seeing as no scanning was involved. The senior manager just about pulled a muscle, she was laughing so hard. But my tip was given to all cashiers. I have only seen him in the store once since then. I hope to see him a lot less.
The first pump in the multi-pump setup's down? No big deal, just keep the system running. What's this net positive suction head and pump cavitation you speak of? There's a rather old part of the plant where they used a triple pump config and serial to maintain high pressure fluid flow. All three pumps date from before 1980s. There was a second much newer pump also doing the same workload, but that one had bearing failure and thus was down. A few machines were put in standby mode to ensure others would have the necessary coolant flow. So one day the first old pump in the serial config had some sort of impeller failure. The other two pumps were fine, but the reason why all three were needed was to maintain net positive suction head. In summary of that article, when looking at a pump system, typically the lowest fluid pressure region is right at the inlet. If the fluid pressure is too low and or too hot, it could flash into steam/vapor/gas and then immediately collapse back into vapor when it reaches the impeller. The rapid pressure change damages the impeller, reduces pump efficiency and power, and also makes a hell of a noise, which is cavitation. Now, there might have been a way to still safely operate with just two pumps, but that meant breaking out the pump curve tables and calculating at what reduced flow rate could the two pumps provide up to without losing MPSH, and deciding what systems were not going to get any fluid flow. And there was no guarantee that they could be safely run at any flow rates with just two of them. We had one particular engineer who was willing to push the limits of physics in the name of keeping production running and saving money, and he or she argued with another engineer and two technicians over how to proceed. The manager in charge of that production area didn't have a technical background and couldn't decide who to trust. The particular engineer said something along the lines of, the MPSH is a guideline, not a hard rule. They wanted the physics rule-bending engineer to put that in writing, but I guess he or she had enough brain cells to do their own paper trail, CYA, and merely sent out an email stating that I'm confident that this system can run with just two pumps. The three opposers sent their objection emails explaining their concerns and left to go do other stuff. Predictably, the two pumps start making noises as if it was pumping gravel when they were starting up at full power. The physics rule-bending engineer told the clueless manager that everything was fine and left at the end of the working day. Both pumps failed hard during the night shift. Entire production was down until the newer pump was fixed because a few stations required the fluid flow at a specific pressure and flow rate. Supervisors and managers were screaming as also predicted. The aftermath? The physics bending engineer was confronted by a different manager who had had enough technical background to filter out the BS and had previously interviewed the three opposers separately just to make sure that they were telling the truth. Hearing the laws of physics is not a fucking guideline from the closed door was the highlight of my day when I was dealing with the dumpster fire project.
No more safe dropping. I work for a national mail company. People generally don't have a great impression of us because your one impression is the time something went wrong, and also, to be honest, some of my coworkers are dumbasses. Nowhere near as many as people think, though. Our policy is pretty simple. We can safe drop a package on your porch, or back porch, or side door, if it looks safe to do so. Usually that means if it is hidden. Some customers, the people sending the mail, never allow you to safe drop. If you can't safe drop, you are supposed to ring and then start writing a notice. When you finish writing, you ring again, drop the notice in the mailbox, and go. That's literally what we are trained to do. It's way too short a time in my opinion, but that's policy. Anyway, I have one house on my route that gets a ton of parcels. They have a spot on their porch which is covered and can't be seen from the street. I usually safe drop there if I can. If I'm not allowed to, I will ring and give them a good amount of time because they take a long time to come to the door and I'm usually pretty nice that way. I get a complaint one morning. The guy at this house is extremely mad because a package he got is missing and it was not meant to be safe dropped anyway. I had marked it as delivered and not as safe dropped. So now I'm potentially in trouble because I'm not supposed to mark something as delivered unless I'm putting it in someone's hand or a mailbox. This customer is saying that this package is way too big to be in a mailbox. My supervisor is nice, so he tells me to just look for it and look at the houses with similar addresses because the GPS isn't working for that drop. Sometimes it doesn't. However, this is something I could get a day with no pay for. It has happened. Also, I'm worried because I don't remember having a big parcel for that house and I have so many that I can't remember everything from like 3 days ago. This customer also says in no uncertain terms to never safe drop anything at that address again. So I go there pretty much first thing and look around. I don't see it. I check the mailbox just to be thorough and there's a tiny package in there with the correct item number. I take a pic for proof and buzz the doorbell and eventually someone comes out. It turns out that the shipping company sent the wrong amount or left something out. I'm kind of pissed because I spent time on this and this dude is acting like this is also my fault or that I actually only delivered it now. Anyway, from that day on, I don't safe drop there. No one told me to start again and I follow policy on notices. They never get to the door on time and they must go to the post office a lot more. The end. Marge Simpson hair complies with all boys' middle school uniform code. Hi, the story is from a quarter century ago, but still hilarious. Background: my Catholic middle school in Mexico City reflected on the demographics of Mexico City. 1,200 boys, 10% white, 20% native, 70% mestizo, and me being the single black bean in the cafe au lait rice. The school had a peculiar uniform code where we attended in a formal uniform Mondays and special events and in chivvies Tuesday through Friday, except for having weekly PE on a chivvies day and having to be wearing sportwear. But every day our hair had to be presentable, including: on the sides, the hair must not cover the student ears. Behind the head, the hair must not fall below the natural growth line. In front, the hair must not cover the forehead, and if pulled down, it must not be long enough to go below the eyebrows. Had to always be combed, brushed, and or gelled. No uneven shaven hair. Basically no punk looks. The story: between me being a total nerd, an introvert, sucking at non-cycling sports, being a member of the library lunch club, and having applied for and being accepted into the ultra-dorky 30-boy school chamber choir, I was completely like a lemniscate-shaped peg trying to choose between square and round holes. I eventually gave up trying to fit in and began seeking manners to stick out. I soon became the only student to attend school by bicycle. I bought trench coats, heavy boots, fanny packs, and expedition backpacks. I discovered anime and cosplay, and eventually, I believe I was watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something, saw a dude with a cylindrical afro and thought, that would fit the rules, wouldn't it? I thus began letting my hair grow on top. It begun rather tame, just a noticeable cylindrical shape, but between my hairdresser gaining practice and me never failing a hair length test, plus me spending a good 2 or 3 minutes per hour combing it up, I eventually let it grow until I could hide a standing crayon on the crown of my head. My only regret was the no punk look rule, forcing me to keep something of a cushion on the sides and back. Still, half the school hated me for having and milking my personal loophole, but I was a total social urchin and bully magnet and I was glad to fight back in such a blatant fashion. I eventually moved on to high school where there was no uniform at all and nobody was checking hair, but I discovered that letting it grow further up was just forcing me to comb so much more. Then I turned 18 and had to do my mandatory military service. Thus, I had to actually chop it down. And being that I had just moved to Cancun, I discovered that my vertical hairdo was as unpleasant as wearing a wool cap in this hellish heat, and gave up on it, but my memories remain. Edit. Just to clarify, I didn't call it Marge Simpson hair back then, but the description fits. I actually called it my vertical hairdo. Edit 2. To better describe my hair at the time, think kid in play, but to conform with the no punks rule, I had to keep cushioning the hair on the sides and back.
Less ice, if you say so. I'm a barista at a small coffee shop and we do blended drinks. Basically just pick a drink off the menu and add the word frozen to it and we'll pour over ice and then blend. And it takes a decent amount of ice since you're going for the blended slushy texture. It doesn't affect the taste unless you let the drink melt and get all watered down. I get to work and this woman's already at the register while my coworker tells her it'll be a minute because she's in the middle of a drink. I walk behind the counter to go to the office to drop off my stuff and clock in, and this woman sees me and immediately starts saying, Hey, can I order? I say it'll be a minute as I'm still carrying my bag and my coat, obviously not in a position to be making drinks. My coworker tells her again that she'll be with her in a second, as soon as she is finished with the drink she's making first. I drop off my stuff and venture out to the tills to clock on, and the woman again starts talking to me and rattling off questions when I haven't even clocked in yet, and was clocking in early just so that she wouldn't have to wait for my coworker to finish up. The conversation goes as follows. Her, do you have any blended drinks? Me, oh yeah, it's her. You know blended, like with ice and blended together? Me, yes, as I was saying, we do. It's our frozen drinks on the her. Blended drinks, they're called frappes. Ever heard of them? It's what I imagined she was saying in her head. Me, tired of her cutting me off every time I try to explain and finally able to get her to stop talking. Yes, we do, our frozen drinks. Her, how are those made? Which was a dumbass question since she was just over explaining a blended drink to me and cutting me off when I tried to point out the options on the menu. Me, just like the normal base drink, then we fill it with ice and blend it. Her, large blended latte, light ice. I don't take the light ice comment too seriously since any blended drink relies on a full cup size of ice to give it the blended texture. I just figure I'll level the ice in the cup rather than heap a mound over the top. She pays and steps back and I pour ice into the cup all the way to the brim, which is less than we normally do for blended drinks. The customer practically hops over the counter and screams, "Excuse me, I said light ice." I turn to her with a look on my face and explain that this is less ice, because normally for blended drinks we use way more, and if I used less ice than what I had, the drink would just be an iced latte with ice dust in it. Her, not even listening to me or comprehending what I said, less ice. I smile, say okay, and pour out most of the ice until it only fills a third of the cup. Let me reiterate again, we normally use a cup and a half of ice for blended drinks to give it that blended texture, which is the entire point of ordering a blended drink. I was using less than a third of the ice I was supposed to put in for a normal serving. I fill her cup with milk and the espresso shots and pour the mixture into the blender. I watch as the blender just chops up the total of 5 ice cubes until it is just ice dust, which melts right into the espresso, and out of the blender comes a very frothy, no ice to be seen, cold but not that cold latte. I pour the iceless drink into the plastic cup and slide it out onto the bar. Frozen latte with light ice, I call out and watch as the woman looks up from her phone to see the cold, iceless latte on the counter with me smiling at her. She looks like she's confused at the drink's texture and almost as if she's going to say something until I say, "I hope there wasn't too much ice in there. I took out most of it like you asked." She takes the drink and leaves. Enjoy your frothy, watery, not that cold because there wasn't enough iced latte.
I charged you too much? My friend, you have no idea. I used to be a bartender manager at a small family owner restaurant. We had this one customer who I'll call D. It's short for douchebag. Anyways, he used to be a really nice guy. Always fun to talk to, had interesting stories, the works. However, after about 8 months of him being a regular, he asked me out. I very politely and kindly turned him down. And my god, you would have thought I threatened his mom with the way he reacted. So following that point, he turned into a giant douchebag, always snapping at me, both literally and figuratively, complaining about food that he never had an issue with before, etc. A couple months later, we had some changes to our menu and some slight price changes. Notably, his favorite soup, elk chili, was 75 cents more. He stormed in and sat and ordered elk chili. I said, "Of course, I just want to make sure you're aware of the change." He snapped at me and said, "How dumb do you think I am? I can read." "Okay, my dude, whatever you can say." So he gets his soup, his meal, a few beers, and a glass of one of our higher quality bourbons. I bring him the check and he flips out. "This is more than it was before. You never told me that it would be more. This is fraud. I'm not paying this. Fix it." Okay, I can do that. However, on the check, I had also charged him for only happy hour price beers, which was significantly less than our regular prices. Happy hour ended before he even got there. I also charged him for a lower quality bourbon by the same company. Please note, the owner was okay with that since he was technically a regular and had spent a lot of money there.
So I fixed the check for him, but I fixed all of it. The new check was about $15 more than it was before. He was so mad he was lost for words, and I took that time to show him how I fixed his check. He never came back on nights I was working after that. I don't work there anymore. I wonder how he's doing. Edit. I've realized my transgression and it will never happen again. I changed it to 75 cents.
Aunt makes me let my cousin hold my venomous snake and gets bit. This was a r/entitled parents post and someone told me to put it on his sub so it might not sound like others. Obligatory, I'm on mobile and English is not my first language, so rip me a new one, I really don't care. TLDR at bottom. Okay, so I have Western Hognose snake, and yes, it's venomous. If you're wondering why I have a venomous snake as a pet, it's because the venom only affects amphibians. To humans, it's like a bee sting. Also, the venom doesn't really get into your body unless the snake hangs on and basically chews it into you, because the venom doesn't come out of the fangs. One other thing, if my snake were to bite you defensively, it would let go, but if it thought you were food, it would hold on until it realizes you aren't. Okay, sorry for the long introduction, on with the story. Cast me, misogynist, EMU, entitled mother, entitled aunt, EK, entitled cousin. Okay, so the day it happened we were having a family gathering. As usual, people wanted to hold and see my snakes, so some family members did. I saw EM and EK hold my brother's guinea pig, important soon. After about 10 minutes, EM and EK came into my room. They greet me and don't seem too fucked up yet. EK asked to hold my snake and I explained to him that he needs to wash his hands because he held my brother's guinea pig. EM with a slightly raised voice, no, he doesn't have to wash his hands, just to keep your snake clean. We won't get it dirty, we are family. After about a minute or two of arguing saying EK was gonna get bit, I finally caved. At this point I knew he was going to get bit, so I just let him so he would figure out. I handed my snake to EK and everything was fine for about 30 seconds. EK had one finger out petting the snake's chin and neck. The snake smells the guinea pig on him and only senses his finger, which was small enough for him to swallow. So he strikes his finger and doesn't let go because it was a feeding response, otherwise he would have instantly let go. After 10 seconds of intense chewing from the snake grinding the venom into EK, he lets go. EM begins to tear me a new one. EM, how dare you let your snake bite my sweet boy? You trained him to do that, didn't you? Me, no, like I said earlier, it's because he thought he was food from handling the guinea pig. They leave my room and stay away from me. 1 minute later, EM and EK realize the swelling from the bite and barge into my room. EM, why is my son swelling? Me, I said he was venomous. EM suddenly freaks out and calls an ambulance along with the cops, saying I released a dangerous animal on her. The ambulance arrives and basically tells them it will go down and heal and that is not a big idea. When the cops arrive, EM starts with her bullshit, but we eventually convince them that it was an accident. For the rest of the night, EM and EK gave me the death stare. TLDR, EM blames my venomous to amphibians snakes feeding response on me training my snake to bite them. Calls cop and ambulance, which eventually leaves after seeing what happened. EM and EK death stare me.